So good morning, everybody. I'm Mike Haynes. I'm with Transdev North America. I'm the Director of Business Improvement. Just kind of giving the quick introduction. I've spent 16 years with the Chicago Transit Authority. Before now, I'm into my second year with Transdev North America. We are the US's largest private operator of public transportation, which sounds a little bit of a mix-up, right? Public-private. We have 18,000 employees and over 200 properties across the U.S. and Canada, with 200 million annual passenger trips under our umbrella, mostly split 50-50 paratransit and fixed route. So what I want to talk about today is this concept that I kind of coined probably about a year, no less than a year ago. This was like a pandemic term that came to me. And called transit data as a service, sort of a new way to think about transit performance data. So just looking at our landscape here at Transdev North America, ITS solutions powering our fixed route, we have a wide variety of all the systems. So nearly half of our buses have clever devices. We don't necessarily have the raw data behind each of these sort of Avail, Nextbus, Trapeze, clever devices. There's the Ford Mobility Group, which has Transloc, double map ride systems. One place has Init, some use Swiftly on top of these, and we do some of our own systems. So this is similar to Conrad's slide where he had a bunch of vendor partners, although now we're diving a little bit deeper into the specific ITS solutions for public transit. So how can we work across all of these systems? So this is what I coined the term, sort of a new term, transit data as a service, right? Everybody in the two little A's, right? Mobility as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, everything as a service, right? And so this term doesn't really exist, but we're kind of been talking about it for a while within these current concepts of APIs, application programming interfaces, the general transit feed specification, right, which many will be familiar with. That was originally the Google transit feed specification. And in a rare move, Google kind of dropped the Google and turned it into general. How convenient that worked. And that's a common way of sharing the schedule data across systems. And then there's the GTFS RT, Google or General Transit Feed Real-Time Feed Specification. So pulling all that together, we're getting closer to this concept of a transit data as a service. But even those items are a bit siloed. So Conrad talked a lot about open data and that sort of thing. So solution providers talk about the open data, but often that means the data are still deeply trapped inside some vendor solutions, or in our case, on client networks that we don't have access to as the operator. Or we might only have access to it while we're on site at our property. And we struggle to make those longer term connections at a corporate level. So our internal systems that we have do this to a point. Long before a lot of the smaller agencies started to acquire costly ITS solutions, Transdev provided an off-the-shelf solution, and still does, for sort of internal tracking, OTP reporting, and even prediction generation. Although we're slowly sort of moving away from that and moving more to these vendor solutions, but we're spread thin across all the different vendor landscapes. So this concept of transit data as a service is looking to bridge that gap between the vendor provided client tools and Transdev needs, a Transdev or a private operator needs, as well as to produce future offerings for our clients. A lot of our smaller properties just don't have the wherewithal to go and get a large ITS solution. So what exactly is this transit data as a service? And it really, at its core, it's a methodology of taking in transit data to then standardize and serve up for common transit operational needs. So schedule data, I talked about GTFS, you've got others. Internally at Transdev, we have something we call VPS, or VDS, I should say, Vehicle Dispatch System, or Veolia Dispatch System, because that was our prior name, or Virtual Dispatch System. You can kind of pick anything you want for the V. You take in that location data, the vendor API from AVL systems, automatic vehicle location, through an automatic, through a application programming interface. You bring in either GTFS. In our case, we're bringing in Lytx GPS. Lytx is an onboard operator behavior camera, right? And one camera on the operator, one camera out front, looking for sudden stops, and behavioral, looking at your phone while driving and things like that will pick up. We're using the GPS from that and able to feed that into this transit data as a service system, and then some dispatch data and others. The idea to get it into that transit data as a service then gives you a command console output of real-time map, route performance, historical map playback, standardized OTP, dispatch, validation with that VDS, bringing it into the payroll analytics piece, because we're all about the staffing here at Transdev. So did you drive what you said you drove, and did all that work out? And then, of course, the real-time passenger information, or RTPI, for predictions, signage, like papercast, or shelter signs, and then, of course, the GTFS RT feed. So we can both sort of, the transit data as a service concept can both bring in a GTFS feed, bring in other sources, maybe make an enhanced feed and get that back out to the riding public. So the role of this transit data as a service for clients at Transdev, or our clients, and for Transdev itself. So for the clients need more operational planning tools. They need the data to support these macro decisions and set the schedules. And a lot of them don't have the wherewithal or the tools to do that in-house. Then performance monitoring, right? They got to monitor our performance, and it'd be nice to do it all in one platform, in one command console kind of a concept. So the key benefits in this framework is the individual agencies can keep their existing ITS solutions, maximizing their existing investments, but then grow into improvements. Conrad mentioned that a lot of these smaller startups are more positioned for sort of that next world because they're not in sort of trapped in legacy code and some legacy systems. So now if you're taking that data, bringing it into a centralized world, you can then leverage other people's innovations on top of that. What Transdev needs, of course, vehicle location data, a common on-time performance platform. This is sort of the bane of my existence at Transdev, and then other benefits, sort of an open standard solution, and of course, upselling some enhancements to customers that might not have these solutions. What it really gets at, though, is the transit operations management, and it becomes the ideal transit management system where you sort of get the best of these worlds, right? Open standards means you're using data feeds on a cloud-based platform, right? No more VPNs to client systems. Easier integration within the Transdev ecosystem to client systems. Easier startups, right? Easier to get things off the ground. And cost-effective to support those smaller sites where the client might have no existing onboard solution, and we come in, put the Lytx camera in there and for our safety system, and now we can do other things with it. So it becomes expandable on a very modular system where you can add on to it. So what do we get out of a transit operations management through this transit data as a service? Really, the basic requirements of fixed route transit operations, the fundamentals, right? A map of vehicles, real time, and very easy historical playback, route monitoring performance, visual, tabular, garage departure performance. How did we do this morning on pullout? And we'll talk about that in a minute. And then actionable real-time and historical reporting. Key word there is actionable, and the hardest part is to get that action out of these systems, as I'll kind of speak to the challenges here. So let's zone in just on actionable on-time performance at pullout. What is within our control as the operator? Pulling out on time. And as soon as you say on time, the first question is, well, what does that mean? What does it on time mean? What is it, 5 minutes late, 1 minute early? Do we care if they leave the yard early? What does that mean? And does that vary across our 200 different properties, right? And so the operator behavior, that's within our control. You will leave the yard on time, right? Measurable, we can measure the yard departure time. We have to then match it to the schedule to actually get an on-time performance. So what I've got here is we have this VDS system that pairs the drivers to vehicles and to schedules. And then we have Lytx, which is our safety system, but has GPS. How do we bring that all together, boil that down to information just that the operations manager needs, and then further boil that down to the regional vice president so he knows how it's generally doing. So that's really what I'm getting at with this kind of one pilot, one project, and you can see all the complexities that are needed. You still in this world need an ITS solution to get that information out to the public as a real-time passenger information system. Let's take a quick look just at a small case study. This is a property that we have down south, just looking at garage departure. 3 easy steps, right? I need to set up a geofence. I need some kind of an API export from my TDaaS. But this is the real hard part. That red box there, matching that with this VDS data, analyzing it. My plan is sort of automate this. And the biggest piece of it is to create an action plan. Work with the operators and the dispatch staff for root cause analysis and action. And that right there is the challenge and defines sort of the success or failure of any of these TDaaS-like projects. We know when it left the garage. The challenge is finding out who and what time was it supposed to leave the garage and having that be actionable. And so that's where I'm getting at is we're not quite there yet. There's 3 pieces, I believe, in any project. There's the technological, the financial, and the political. I deliberately lowercased all those. It's small p politics. There's the technological is the lytics data in near real time. Unfortunately, the lytics data is only every 120 seconds. We get 30-second resolution, but we only get it every 2 minutes. And there's no real-time linkage of human to vehicle. Every one of these transit data as a service concepts and projects depends on an accurate pairing of operator to work, operator to vehicle. And that's what Tomas is going to talk more about within the TMS solution, where we really get down into the meat of that. So transit data as a service, you need at least 2 of those arrows lined up. Marry the work to the vehicle and the operator to the vehicle, or marry the operator to the work and the operator to the vehicle. And there's various ways of doing that. Financial, generally negligible if you can work with the right partners. Political, though, is the challenge, resistance to change, and a reliance on internal tools and a sort of a known internal ecosystem is a bit of a challenge. So where does this take us? What's a vision for the future? Integration, ITS vendors becoming increasingly flexible with their data and their APIs, but we still need to make it easier to gain access, sort of without VPN, right? We have lots of different partners. You've got LIT, Clever Devices, Synchromatics, Init, Avail, Trapeze. I mentioned them earlier. A lot of them have APIs. I have found that sort of LIT and I think Synchromatics has very open published APIs. And so that's very key. The next challenge is that linkage of driver to work assignments, right? You have Trapeze Ops and you have Clever Dispatch pieces and Init and some of these others. Hastis has daily crew, daily vehicle. You have Optibus out there for the schedule piece. How do we bring all those pieces together to get that information? One idea is to use the lytics system. You can flash a badge in front of the lytics camera with a QR code, and the operator logs on to lytics, and now you've got at least operator to vehicle marriage, right? So our vision at Transdev is to build out a fixed route command console for a centralized internal platform. We have this on our paratransit operation. We're working on it for our fixed route. So we've been doing this for years, but it's really getting harder to keep up with all the various platforms. The biggest piece of it, though, is the action. Getting local sites to act on information is a challenge. That's been a challenge in everywhere. You've got to streamline this product, these operations into daily operation activities. And of course, it goes without saying, you can't improve what you can't measure. So I think that gives us a good high-level overview of what I mean by this transit data as a service and where we're going next in terms of an opportunity to better serve our own reporting needs at Transdev while also offering exciting solutions to our clients